So thank you very much. It should be a joint presentation with Olga Egorova. Unfortunately, Olga cannot come, so I'll present our work together. I'll start really with some short notice on blended learning. Then, because we are quite behind the schedule, I'll not really talk about the related work, but I'll go directly to motivation. In the center of my presentation, it will be a pilot study. I'll present aims and goals, a bit talk about the questionnaire, and of course, the discussion of the results will be the main focus of the presentation. And I'll end with the future work ideas and, of course, the conclusions. So blended learning is really a combination of face-to-face classroom exchange and computer-mediated activities, whereas lots of research is actually focused on the latest, so the computer-mediated activities. So I'm very glad that Alison today decided to go other ways, so that we had really blended experience from the DigiSkick and DigiInte, one more focused on the technology and the other on the other side. And I think it's really important to do it that way. Whereas still, together with Olga, we decided that we will try to find out what's really happened at our institution when it comes to the use of technology. Studies on blended learning were connected with the technology and actually with creation of a new term under a new umbrella. At the beginning, really focused on the use of technology, but if we are really honest, a decade ago, blended learning became popular also because of the austerity measures, not just because of the new technology available. Interpreting training and technology is something that go hand in hand, and there were a lot of studies even before the new term blended learning was coined. So general motivation for our survey was connected to the fact that technology changed the interpreting profession as well as an interpreting training, and with the fact that in higher education, blended learning today is a part of modern study programs. In specific, we had a bilateral project between Slovenia and Russia on virtual environments for interpreters, funded by Slovene Research Agency. And also, we have other forms of collaborations between universities. For example, Erasmus Plus is a new form of collaboration, and one of the projects that we are working on together is also funded by the DigiInte. Our pilot study was actually a brief pilot study on technology use, online programs, tools, and resources during the MA study of interpreting in Ljubljana and Astrakhan with our alumni from the last 5 years. The number is quite small, 40. However, in Ljubljana, we have 3 to 6 students per year. So almost all of the students answered our questionnaire. And then later on, we decided that we'll also try to find the same number of alumni in Astrakhan. The main goal or the main goals were first to get the feedback from our former students, And second, to determine whether the use of technology in interpreting training differs between the two institutions, and if, why. The questionnaire was with 15 questions. In Ljubljana, we used online tool developed by the Faculty of Social Sciences. It's freely available, and if you will decide for the survey, I recommend that you visit their website. They have a very nice support, and it's quite user-friendly. And in Astrakhan, we simply did it with the Word document form. The questions were between the multiple choice questions and open questions, like which collections of speeches did you use in interpreting practice, or how often during your interpreting studies did you use social networks for faster communication, and so on and so on. And the last two were, for me, the most interesting one, which were a bit more open one. So do you think that the interpreting program should incorporate the use of more online tools and links, and if yes, which? And how could the study program of conference interpreting be improved by the use of information communication technology at our faculty? So when it comes to the speech collection used, there are some differences between the two institutions. The speech repository is the most popular collection. However, then in Astrakhan, also the speech pool is quite widely used, whereas in Ljubljana, our students are more used to rely on TED Talks, which is a difference, and a significant difference. They use quite a lot our tailor-made department speech databases. So we prepare some speeches especially for the groups that are taught at at particular year. Also, the European Parliament talks are interested for our students, whereas, as we can see in Astrakhan, there is Voice of America as a possible collection of speeches. We asked them also about the resources used during the preparation, not for the specific video conference, for example, or specific mock conference event, but for the classroom presentation, classroom work. And as you can see, the differences are not that big. Maybe we can see already here that in Ljubljana, they more tend to use a kind of more traditional resources like a dictionary and newspapers, and in Astrakhan, online diaries and blogs, and especially podcasts. When it comes to the social networks, there is a huge difference between our students and the students in Astrakhan. Ours are more traditional ones. They are not. They don't use a lot social networks for the specific purpose of training or to facilitate communication between them, maybe because the group is so small. So as you can see, most of them never use social networks, or just rarely, just opposite to the Astrakhan, where the social networks are widely used very often, or sometimes. When it comes to the most frequently used gadgets, as you can see in Ljubljana, it is the division between the smartphones and tablets, but more or less today it's the same. If you have a smartphone big enough, then it's also a kind of a tablet. Whereas in Astrakhan, tablets are more popular than in our cases, and in one case also e-reader was the most frequently used gadget for the students in Astrakhan. About the use of audio and video recording devices, it was quite surprised that in Ljubljana there was still one student who never used any recording device. Also, 20% of them used them rarely, whereas all the others are between sometimes and very often. In Astrakhan, we have a different situation. They use them often or very often, only 15% of them sometimes. We asked them also which recording devices they use, and we came out with an identical list of recording devices. Most of them, they use recorded devices in the interpreting lab, then smartphones and tablets, video cameras, voice recorder, and, yes, ski crack. It's at the end of the list, but hopefully it will improve. The use will improve. And then the use of e-classrooms, the Moodle platform. And this was something that I didn't expect, at least in Ljubljana, because I teach modules on a BA level where we have a study program on cross-cultural communication and also modules on methodology for translators. And when it comes to our BA program, all parts of our study program correspond to specific e-classrooms. So they have to have e-classrooms on the BA level. And most of the modules on translation MI course, they have also e-classrooms, so very structured work with Moodle platform. And then the situation when it comes to the interpreting program is quite the opposite. As you can see, in Ljubljana and in Astrakhan, most of them never used e-classroom, or rarely or sometimes, and just one language combination in Astrakhan used the platform very often. How the study program could be improved, the ideas from the students in Ljubljana and Astrakhan are a bit different. And as you can see, the first one, the most frequent one, was use of the Moodle. The students that finished our BA program are used to have Moodle, are used to have a structured program, and then suddenly on interpreting course there is more or less nothing. And especially they would like to have it because of the performance feedback, and they would like to have it from different trainers, not just the one in the classroom, but from different ones. Video conferences are part of both study programs. Most of the students, they have video conferences once per month. What they really appreciate from the video conferences is more contact with trainers from other institutions, from outside our department. So maybe the new modules from the DigiSkick will approach to them just in this particular need. And they would really like to have dual track recording tool for the feedback, also for the feedback of their colleagues, not just the feedback of the trainers. As you can see, the students in Ljubljana, they use technology, but they're still more traditional when it comes to their needs. They want a lot of face-to-face communication, a lot of feedbacks. And also dual track recording tool will be available after the DG Inte project that we are part of it will be finished. And I think it will be a good tool for the students to do also on the feedback between them in the group. In Astrakhan, the students divided into two groups. One group wanted even wider access to ICT, and the other was not that sure. They appreciated it, but they were a bit confused with lots of different tools used, and they would like to focus only to 2 or 3 most useful ones when it comes to the study program. They are also very fond of video conferences, and they would like to have it even more organized by themselves. And what was also noticed, that more systematical use of terminology resources and databases should be included by the feedback. So what was the what were the differences, or when it comes to Ljubljana, what we found out, that of course technology is part of the training, that the need for a more systematic approach is still there. In Ljubljana, the program is very small. It's actually a tiny program with fewer students, and the program is to a large degree personalized, so maybe the use of technology when you have a really small group of students that are used to work very close together with the trainers is different than when you have lots of them. We have a combination of internal and external staff members, and sometimes with external staff members it's hard to work, for example, with Moodle. There are quite huge differences between programs at the department when it comes to BA versus the MA, and of course when it comes to the differences between the translation and interpretation. And I went through all the data, especially the last 2 questions. There were a lot of interesting comments. And one citation really summarizes the attitude of the students in Ljubljana. And I quote, "The quality of interpretation arises out of an effort invested in the preparation and hours of exercises, regardless of the use of ITC. The essence remains in the head of an interpreter." So our students are still a bit more traditional. They know how to use the technology, but still they think that the focus should be at some other things, like a background knowledge, as we heard it before. The technology in Astrakhan is much more embedded in the interpreting training and even before the beginning of the study due to the geography. The Astrakhan school is actually the school for the whole Caspian region. They have a lot of common combinations with also Boğaziçi in Istanbul, like Kazakh, Azeri, and other languages. And of course, because of the distances, they use technology, they use video links also at the very beginning for the entrance exams, and also then during the study. I will quote Olga, "What do we need blended learning for in Astrakhan? To survive, not just to facilitate the pedagogical assistance, give easier access to resources, etc., but due to the necessity the technology is systematically incorporated in all phases of the program, from enrollment to the final exams. And if we try to summarize the attitudes of their students, it's a bit different. And I quote, "The use of online tools and resources makes the program more efficient and much more entertaining." So what are the ideas for the future work? We would like to do the survey, not just the survey, maybe even better the interviews among teachers at both university, to expose trainers' attitudes towards the use of the technology, with the hypothesis that actually trainers' attitudes directly influence the attitudes of the students. I visited Astrakhan in September last year and talked with their trainers, and really the whole atmosphere in Astrakhan when it comes to the use of technology is totally different than in Ljubljana. And the use of the different functions of e-learning platform at the Department of the Translation Studies in Ljubljana will be analyzed. We saw that e-learning is largely unused in interpreting training. So the hypothesis is that because it is unused, there is also possibility that when it comes to the use of different possibilities in the e-courses, e-courses actually are mostly used as a traditional data storage tools and not with all the other possibilities. So I presented only the small pilot study on a still small number of alumni. However, when it comes to Ljubljana, almost all our alumni answered the questionnaire. We received a general impression about the use of technology into different environments, and it seems that the general attitude towards the use of technology is the crucial factor. We have quite a lot of ideas for the future studies, and we hope that we'll get additional fundings from our research agency, whereas if not, we will use Erasmus Plus or some other possibilities to work together in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vojko. As we are running out of time, just a quick question. Who has a question?
You can still ask me in the coffee break because I'll be around.
Hello? Can you hear me? Oh, it is, yeah. Well, I'm very sorry, but it sounds very much like Astrakhan beats Ljubljana in terms of the use of technology.
Yes.
So just a comment really as to why, because I think the answer of one of your students is just not enough to find as to why students in Ljubljana are not using more of technology. And I think another thing when it comes to, you said that tutors' influence is crucial here. Well, very often it's our students who motivate us to get on with learning more about technology. So it's just food for thought for your future. You know, you intend to do further projects, but
yeah. I think it is the case in lots of environments, and also in Ljubljana, the students are the source for introducing new approaches, but a general attitude of the department sometimes is hard to move from one to another direction.
Yes, just is more of a comment than a question. I found it most surprising that you say that in Ljubljana there's a very conservative attitude towards new technologies, because Ljubljana is maybe the university with which we cooperate, I wouldn't say the most, but one of the universities with which we organize virtual classes and other initiatives. And I also felt that there was a very open and positive attitude towards virtual learning. So it's surprising. But I have to admit that we do the same with Astrakhan. But this difference of seeing Ljubljana as conservative and Astrakhan as modern,
no, it's not just, it's more conservative. It's not that it's Astrakhan just modern and Ljubljana just traditional. But I think that the attitude as a whole in Ljubljana is a kind of blended. So it's not just the technology, all the other things also matter. And that's maybe the basic difference between the two institutions.